really excited. We're so glad you could be here for our first gathering of the Porch. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Dan Knuff. I'm the executive pastor here. And we're just going to give a big shout out to ACC because it's so cool that our church would allow us to do something like this. So we're really grateful for them. The church is supportive. The staff is supportive of what we're doing here. We're grateful that you guys are here. And we're starting a new series this morning called #Goals. And you probably have noticed that people are talking about goals right now, or at least with New Year's resolutions. How many of you are a New Year's resolution kind of person? You've tried a New Year's resolution this year? None of you. So millennials have no New Year's resolutions. Okay, how about goals? How many of you have any goals for 20? Okay, all right, that's better. All right, we just don't like the New Year's resolutions. Have you noticed though how like the gyms are all packed right now? How many of you work out at a gym currently? Okay, 5. Okay, for us 5, the gyms are really packed right now, but guess what? By March 1st, most of those people will be gone. That's just kind of how it is when it comes to goals and New Year's resolutions and stuff like that. Usually they say about 6 weeks. Some of them last, and sometimes it never even gets past 4 weeks. But usually after that first month, most people's New Year's resolutions or goals for the year are already done. We've been doing something kind of fun here at our church staff, to get people moving and active. Myself and Kelly and Emily, we were like, you know what, maybe we should do a step challenge at our church. And just to try to get some more steps, get people doing a healthy lifestyle. And I gotta be honest with you, I'm a former athlete, so notice I said former, I thought I did a lot of steps. And my step count, you know, if you would have asked me just on the street, like, how many steps you think you did a day? I'd be like, oh, about 10,000. It was coming in at like 4, 5, 6,000. So my team let me know, like, Dan, that's not gonna cut it. Emily and Kelly were on my team, and they're like, you need to like literally step up your game here so we can win this thing. So I went from like 6,000 to 8,000 to 10,000. Still wasn't good enough because now we're winning the competition. Then it goes to 12 to 15. I'm pulling 20,000 on some days. And then just to make sure we won, because my competitive juices kind of kick in, I did a 30,000 step day. Okay. Do you know if you're not used to stepping much at all, and you start doing 20 and 30,000 steps, your body hates you, okay? And my body started to hate me. And so after doing all these steps, our competition was over. We had this flag football season that was supposed to get kicked off. It was like one of the first plays of the game. I'm so excited. I can't wait to like turn on my speed and like run around people. And my body just kind of said, yeah, we hate you. My legs hate me. Everything, it just shut down. Nothing. So I go to do my first run and just pull 2 muscles, 1 in each leg from all the steps. I'm not joking. It was so embarrassing. I almost like stumbled and fell on my face, and I just kind of like took myself out of the game because there really wasn't a whole lot I can do. So we kind of all get what it is with the whole goal thing. We set goals. Sometimes we get crazy with our goals, like the step challenge turned into. And then sometimes you see, even on Instagram, we have some pictures and people put #goals. Do we have those? Like #leadership goals. I don't really know why that would be a leadership goal because he's wearing a tutu, but that's Tucker. That's definitely not a leadership goal. Isn't that cute? Relationship goals. Because look, they got the white in the background. It's just beautiful. I mean, almost like they planned that. That's Matt and Emma. Let's see, the motherhood goals. I mean, that's cute. How could you not love that? That's a great one. And then we have another one, I think, up here. There's no tagline, but it looks like me. And if you're wondering, yeah, I am doing like a weird arm flex because I don't know what to do with my arms in pictures. So it's like, I guess I'll just flex it. So that was kind of going on there. And it looks like dad-daughter, beautiful moment. We're right out in front of full throttle. And it looks like, oh my gosh, this would be, what a great father-daughter moment. No, this is one of the worst parenting moments you've ever seen. And this is the problem with Instagram, problem with Facebook. We make things look good that really sometimes aren't good. We make our lives sometimes look perfect, even though they aren't perfect. I told my daughter, she's scared of all rides. And I said, you know what we're going to do to conquer your fear, Jada? We're going to take you on full throttle. The first ride of the day. Because in my parenting, in my warped parenting idea, I thought if we could take her on the first ride of the day, get her not fearful about roller coasters anymore, she would be good to go. So I take this poor, sweet, innocent child on a really intense ride called Full Throttle. And it's kind of Full Throttle it's almost like you're shot out of a gun in a roller coaster. It goes so fast. So she's next to me. I see the terror on her face. We get shot out of this thing, and I just see tears dripping down her eyes. Worst parenting moment ever. How many of you think it helped her conquer any fears? No, she didn't want to ride anything for the rest of the day. Worst move ever. But sometimes we do that. We present things in our lives. Oh, look at this beautiful photo on Instagram. And it was actually like a terrible parenting moment. But in this series, we don't want to talk about just life goals and parenting goals and things like that, although we hope you have those kind of things. We want to talk about our spiritual goals. How do we know that in 2018, anything in your life spiritually is going to be different from 2017? If you're doing the exact same things, why would anything really be different if you don't have some spiritual goals? See, some people come in this room and they're pretty spiritually frustrated right now because they feel like nothing seems to be working in their life. They feel like God is always disappointed with me, I feel like. I'm not doing enough. And one of the best ways to kind of change your spiritual outlook is to kind of change our thoughts on God. A.W. Tozer said this, I love this quote. What comes into our mind when we think about God is the most important thing about us. So that's kind of one of the things we want to do. Our goal for this series is to help change people's thoughts on God and to think differently about Him, about all that He's done for us. And so that's what we want to do in this series. And anytime I kind of need that in my own life, maybe I'm starting to get anxious, I'm starting to get depressed, I find myself starting to get angry, I find myself starting to just get frustrated. One of the books I turn to is the book of Psalms, because it really helps me get my right thought on God going again. And so what I do is I go to the book of Psalms and it kind of recalibrates everything in my thought life, my thoughts about God, my thoughts about His goodness and that. So that's kind of where we want to head in the next 4 weeks, kind of look at some different Psalms that we're going to start it with today and then kind of change our thinking on God. My first day in the job as a youth pastor in Pittsburgh, I had a girl come up to me and she said, do you know my name? Do you know who I am? And I said, no, it's my first day on the job. I said, I don't know anybody. And she said, well, my name's Brittany. And she said, I'm kind of a big deal here. So you need to remember my name. And I was like, okay, it's kind of awkward, but I will try to remember your name. And she was right. She was a really, really big deal in that youth group. But as we look at these Psalms, you could kind of say these Psalms were really a big deal to the nation of Israel. A very big deal. These were called the Song of Ascent, Psalms 120 through 134, which we're going to be looking at. And these 15 Psalms were actually sung by Hebrew pilgrims as they went up to Jerusalem for the great worship festivals. And topographically, Jerusalem is one of the highest elevation points in Israel, so it's one of those spots that they would constantly talk about ascending up. And so they would sing these songs and just kind of go over them and recite them as they're walking up to these worship festivals. So it was like a really powerful moment for the nation of Israel. And these kind of became, this ascent wasn't just a literal, it was also kind of a metaphor for their spiritual goals, because they were going from one level to another. They were going from one spiritual growth spot to another in their spiritual lives. They were advancing. And 3 times a year, a faithful Hebrews would make the trek to Jerusalem. They had this spiritual rhythm to their life. They would go to these festivals, and they would kind of be on a spiritual high, and then they would come down and live out the rest of their life and their families and their communities. So there was this constant spiritual rhythm that was taking place. And if you think about it in our churches, that's something that's really kind of lacking today. There isn't a lot of spiritual rhythm in churches today and in Christians' lives when they go into church. And I think it's why so many millennials have actually left the church. Because you think about it, when you were in youth group, and maybe our youth group days actually had it right. We had retreats that we'd go on. We'd have worship nights. We'd have all-nighters. We'd have mission trips. You'd have all this kind of stuff going, and you kind of live your life out in between those big events. And you get excited about this, and I'm going to grow here on this retreat. We're going to go to summer camp, and I'm going to grow. And then after that experience, you kind of live out your faith, maybe at a higher level. Maybe you'd set new goals, and you keep rising. And then what happens, all these students graduate from youth group, and they go to big church. and there's no rhythm, at least you can see, and there's no relationship really with the pastor. There's no more late talks with them or hanging out. He's just some dude on a stage giving nice talks. And I think that's why a lot of millennials say, you know what, it isn't what I thought it would be, and I need a break from church. Because a lot of our churches today are lacking any kind of spiritual rhythm. And you kind of see that. And we hope your experience here at the Porch over the next few months will be very different from that. We hope you'll start to get some spiritual rhythm and see that spiritual rhythm taking place in your life. And we've got different events, different groups planned to help you get some spiritual rhythm in your life. So this morning we're going to take a brief look at this psalm, Psalm 121. It'll be on the screen in the ESV. If you have your Bible, you can turn to Psalm 121, verse 1. My teaching style is what I do is I'll talk about specific verses, but I'll kind of be covering them as they're up on the screen. I won't necessarily say, okay, now turn to verse 3. You'll just kind of notice as they're up there, I'm talking about that particular verse. So if you're wondering, that's kind of how I do it. It's a little different than other teachers. But starting in Psalm 121, verse 1, it says this, I lift up my eyes to the hills, from where does my help come? Now, a person walking with God, and they kind of get themselves into trouble, and they kind of say, where does my help come from? In 2018, this almost kind of might seem like a weird thing. My help comes from the mountains or the hills. Like, why would somebody think that their help would come from the mountains? What is specifically going on culturally in the nation of Israel that somebody would be looking up into the hills to find their help? Anybody have any thoughts? Anybody think what's going on there? Why people would be looking to the mountains for their help? Well, Palestine was overrun with pagan worship to the false god Baal. So on the mountains were all the shrines, temples that would take place. And that's where people would go when they had any problem. Oh, we don't need God. We'll just go up here to this shrine. Oh, if I can purchase this amulet, it'll protect me. If I can do this, if I can visit this temple prostitute, it'll bring fertility to the land. I'll have a great crop season. So any problem that they were having in life, they could go to the hills and try to find a solution into these pagan temples. That's what was going on here. And so a Hebrew, 3,000 years ago, who found herself in trouble, could look to the hills and find answers and help to almost anything that she needed. And if you think about that, we're not really different from them today. See, we don't necessarily look to the hills to solve problems in our lives, but we all have our things that we run to when those problems come. For some of us, it's our addictions. For some of us, it's relationships. For some of us, it's escapes, whatever we do to kind of check out when things really get difficult in life. We're not that different from them. But God will come into our life, and He'll kind of whisper to us, does your help really come from the hills? Is that really going to help you? What you're doing here, is that really going to help you? Or is it just an empty promise? So that was what they kind of faced on a steady basis. Do we go to the hills, or do we rely on God to help me with my particular problem? And I think today we live in a world where people are looking for help in all the wrong places. They're trying to find help for things in their life, and it's not helping them. It's just adding to their disappointment, their brokenness, their wounded soul. It's adding to those things. See, our help comes from our Creator, not His creation. The Creator is always awake, and you can see in that passage is talking about he never sleeps. The reason it talks about that in that passage is because Baal was always sleeping. The false god Baal. His priests had to always wake him up because he was always sleeping. And the psalmist wants us to know our God doesn't sleep. He's always on the job. He's always watching out for you, protecting you, taking care of you. He's got plans and purposes for your life. He's always working on your behalf. Verse 7 talks about this. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. And depending on what version you have there, it might say life or soul. In the ESV it says life. But a lot of passages it says soul. He will keep your soul. And this is one of those passages that's really kind of misleading to a lot of people. There's a lot of confusion about this because they'll see this and they'll say, oh, that God will keep you from all evil. And they think that that's talking about they won't have problems in their life. That's not what this verse is talking about. We're going to flesh it out a little bit. But he's saying he won't allow evil to separate us from him. He's not going to allow evil into our souls. That's what he's talking about. All the evil that's out in the world, he's not going to allow that into our souls. So you know, in the Bible, where any of us promised an easy life. As a matter of fact, Jesus said in John 16:33, in this world you will have trouble. Those are Jesus' words. He didn't promise any of us a problem-free life. He said, in this world, you're going to have trouble. And some of you could easily look at verse 7 and you can say, you know what, that's why I don't go to church anymore, because the Lord will keep you from all evil. My family member got cancer. Where was God? This person in my family tragically passed away. Where was God in that? You know, my dad lost his job. I lost my job. Where was God in that? God didn't keep me from all evil. This person in my family got sick. This person in my family got hurt. Where was God protecting me from evil? And so what happens is sometimes we have a misunderstanding of what the passage is saying. This passage, when it's talking about guard and protect, it's used 6 times in this psalm, and it's also used of Adam in the Garden of Eden. He was supposed to guard it and protect it. The Hebrew word there is shomer. We're going to talk about that word next week, and it really does have a big impact on our life, because we're all supposed to be guardians and keepers of this world that we've been put in. But Adam didn't do a very good job guarding and protecting the Garden of Eden. As you know, evil got into the garden, and our world got really screwed up because of that. I find myself meeting a lot of millennials who believe the lie that well-meaning churches or pop culture have taught over the years. And here's the lie. I've seen it so many times. I've had so many conversations about this. This is why I can speak to it. If you're experiencing difficulties in your life, you must have done something wrong, and God is probably mad at you. And here's what a lot of millennials think. They believe, not just millennials, but I see it all over the church, they believe that if they're having any kind of problems in their life right now, it's because God is either disappointed or mad at them for something that they've done. And that, my friends, is bad theology. And that's not your fault. Unfortunately, that's churches, well-meaning churches, pop culture that has taught us that. It's not true. If you're a follower of Jesus today, I want to promise you something right now. God isn't mad at you. God doesn't look at you with eyes of disappointment. He looks at you with eyes of love. You are his child. You've been redeemed by the blood of Christ. You've been set free from sin. You are a saint. He doesn't look at you as a spiritual screw-up. He looks at you as a saint. And when he allows things to happen in your life, he allows it for your growth, not because he just wants to in any way harm you. In any way, definitely God doesn't want to bring evil on your life. It's because we live in an evil world. We live in a world that's been wrecked by sin. Turn to Romans if you have it. It won't be on the screen. So Romans 8, 19 through 22. I want to show you a quick passage here. This is one that a lot of people don't realize, like how profound the brokenness is in our world. Our whole world has just been destroyed because of the curse of sin. Romans 8, verse 19. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is revealed to me. For the creation waits with eager longing the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subject to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope. The creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption, and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. The whole creation is waiting to get set free, waiting for Jesus to come back and set everything right. Our world that we live in right now is completely broken by sin. Everything's screwed up. Everything's messed up. And God isn't promising any of us in your life you're not going to have pain. You're not going to have trials. You're not going to have bad things happen to you. He promises us something different. Nothing's going to be able to separate you from me. Nothing's going to be able to come, that evil isn't going to be able to come into your life and separate your relationship from me. It's a completely different way to look at it. And because of that, because we know God's word says that our world right now is broken with sin, we can be real about our lives. We can admit that we don't have it all together. We can admit that my marriage right now might not be all that it should be. That right now, financially, I'm really struggling. That right now, I have an addiction that not a lot of people know about, but maybe I need to take care of that. that I am really struggling in some relationships. We can be free to admit that. Because we realize we're broken people living in a broken world. And yet in the midst of that brokenness, God comes to us and says, I haven't left you alone here. You don't have to go to the hills for your help. I'll help you. I care about you. I want to meet your needs. I want to help you. I want to be there for you in the midst of all that. And for us, we can take the pressure off. We don't have to live perfect Instagram lives where we act like everything's great. We can be real with one another. We can have a community like this where we can actually talk about struggles instead of, how are you doing today? I'm doing great. Or I'm good. Or I'm fine. That's one of the biggest lies I've ever told at a church. It'll be told at this church 1,000 times today. I promise you. Because people walk in the doors and they're not fine. We're hurting, we're broken, and we just wish there was somebody in our life that we could talk to about our problems. We can be real with, so we don't have to pretend anymore. That's what we want this community to be, a safe place where we can do that. You can be real, you can have conversations, you can talk about what's really going on in your life. As we close out Psalm 1, I hear many Christians complaining about all the evil in the world. It's kind of like, how can we live out our faith? You know, damn, the world's getting worse and worse every single day. And I think just because there's a lot of evil in our world, it doesn't mean that evil has to get inside us. All the water in the world can't sink a ship unless it gets inside. When you think about it, I'm a person, I like to go on a lot of cruises. I love cruises. And people will ask me sometimes, they'll be like, are you worried it's going to sink? No. Never comes up. Never think about it. Not worried about it. Hand me another margarita. Not worried about whether the ship is going down. It's just not something that will come up in my thoughts at all. It's because unless we hit something, the ships are built to not take in water. I don't have to worry about all the water around me. And some of the same thing in your spiritual life. There's a lot of evil all around you. But God is saying in this psalm, you don't have to worry about that evil getting in because I'm going to protect you from it. Nothing's going to be able to separate you from God. Nothing's going to be able to separate you from His love. All the evil in the world can't come in and separate you from God's love. That's the beautiful promise of Psalm 121. Isn't that a cool promise? You're right, our world is getting darker. There's a lot of things that aren't right. There's a lot of things that are messed up and broken. But that evil doesn't have to get inside us. That's what God's doing. He's protecting our souls. Not just now, but for all eternity. He protects our souls. He's the protector of our souls. It's a beautiful promise from this passage. Would you guys pray with me as we head into our discussion time? Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for your goodness. I thank you for just this group and all the work and effort that came into putting on our first gathering of many at the porch. We're so grateful to you. God, we're also grateful for your protection. You do protect us in so many ways, God, but you don't ever promise us a perfect life. You don't ever promise us a problem-free life. You promise us that you'll protect us from that evil being able to get inside us and separate us from your love. What a beautiful promise, God. We thank you for the psalm. We know it was a great encouragement to the Israelites as they would go off to their different feasts and festivals, God. And it's an encouragement to us as we live our life to know that we are in your thoughts, to know that when we have problems, God, we don't have to run to everything that the world's running to. We can go to you for our help. What a good God you are. We worship you. We thank you. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so you might have noticed that was shorter than maybe some messages, especially for those of you who have heard me before. And I could go longer. I got another 10 minutes in me easy. But what we decided to do at the porch, we wanted to have less message and enable some time for discussion, conversations, and spiritual interaction to take place. Because here's what happens a lot of time in the church. People go in, they say, how you doing? I'm fine, I'm good. Cool. They sing their songs. They hear somebody pontificate for a few minutes. Nothing wrong with pontification. I just did it for a few. But then there's no interaction around that. And they go out unchanged. And unless they have a conversation on the way home with their wife or their kids about it, it was just another message. We don't want that to happen here. We want to challenge each other. We want to, kind of talk about our life and our faith. Now, some of you, I say conversation, and all of a sudden you want to run for the hills, okay? You're like, I want to get out of here as quick. You don't have to, don't feel, you can just kind of listen.
If you don't want to talk, you can just kind of listen to people around you, but we're going to have a few moments of that before Tucker and Jordan come up for their last song. But here's what we want you just to talk about for a couple moments. What goals are you pursuing in 2018? And then how's that going so far? And for some of you, I don't know. I'm not convinced it's going that well. Seeing none of you even had New Year's resolutions, but let's hear how the goals are going. Hopefully they're going okay. And then, to get a little spiritual, what's one area in your spiritual life you'd like to change in 2018? So we start off kind of surface. What are some of your goals? How are they going? And then maybe just what's one area you'd be willing to talk about that you'd like to change in your life? For me, one of the things, I have a really strong devotional reading life. One of the areas I want to change, just to be real with all you guys, I need to do more praying. More praying, because I love to connect with God in prayer. I don't get to do it enough. And so I go to Einstein's every morning, I read, I have a little bit of prayer time, I'm studying theology books, I'm getting my coffee in, I'm ready. But I just feel when I leave that, man, I wish I had a little more time that I actually spent in prayer every single day. So that's kind of mine, so you can keep me accountable on that. But discuss with one another for a few moments. Go ahead, find some people around you. If you're in rows, just feel free to talk to the person next to you. Or just sit there awkwardly.